Hi, I'm Louise and I'm the Assistant Stage Manager of Bird's Eye View Theatre. A couple of days ago, a few of us went to see The Second Minute by Andy Barrett, which is a new play for the Nottingham Playhouse celebrating the centenary of World War I. We've been hearing about it for a while because it's quite similar in a way to our own play, Sincerely Yours, as it uses letters, original letters, from the front line to family back home and from family to the front. But it's quite similar in the content, but the style in which it's done is very different to what we're doing. In The Second Minute, there is a through narrative, so it actually has a full story, whereas in our play it tells a story from before the war to after the war, and the way in which the women's roles and rights have changed. But it doesn't necessarily tell the story of one particular woman, it tells a story of what could potentially be any and every woman. Whereas in The Second Minute it centres around only three characters, an ex-army soldier, a bereaved mother who now works for the army in archiving, and the ghost of a soldier from World War I who's called Thomas Swan. And the second minute is actually in reference to the 2-minute silence, where the first minute is for the remembrance of those who have died fighting in the war, from the Great War and all wars since, whereas the second minute is for remembering and celebrating those who survived and those who lived, so the soldiers who managed to survive the war and the loved ones of the soldiers who died. So in this story it's actually more about the bereaved mother, as she sort of adopts Thomas through his letters and becomes more and more affectionate and refers to him as son by the end of it. I think that's the reason that it makes the play so powerful, is that you relate to the mother figure, who is a contemporary character, but through her you start to understand the emotions that the mothers of the soldiers in the First World War would have felt, because they're the same emotions as you'd feel now. But it also includes things that you don't really think about, like kisses on the end of letters, and how you wouldn't, as a soldier, want to put on lots of emotional language into a letter, as you knew that your commanding officer would read it to censor it if it needed censoring. But kisses couldn't be censored, so you get away with as many kisses as you want and no one's going to cross it out. And that was a way of showing your love. In the same way, the mother makes cakes as well as sending letters to show her affection, so the better the cake shows more love because you put more energy and more time into it. The projections that are used throughout the play are really stunning. I mean, they're all hand-drawn by Sarah Lewis, and I'll put a link down below in our blog. They really illustrate the war in sometimes more ways than a photograph could. I don't know whether that's because hand-drawn feels more real, maybe? I don't know, it's a bit of a strange concept, but the projections really help to illustrate the things that are talked about in the plot. So when you're talking about the kisses, for example, hundreds of kisses start falling from the sky, it looks like, and piling up, almost to cut out the horrors of the war behind it. And the animation of the Battle of the Somme it shows the utter destruction of it, starting with a field which then blows up, and then the screen is just covered in lines, so until you can't even see the image anymore. And it's just a really powerful image, and it's those projections that really stick with you. And although it wasn't a drawing, I really loved the last few images of the men that they've been talking about throughout the play, Thomas Swan and others, like a vicar who went off to war and so on, and they make it more real because you realise that it's not just a character that you see on the stage, it was an actual person, he was an actual person. And they deserve to be remembered. They all deserve to be remembered. And I think that's the main point of the play, the second minute. You know, it's remembering those who have gone, but it's also remembering those who survived. So even if they didn't die in the war, they fought in the war, and so they deserve our remembrance. And I'm hoping that in our own play, that remembrance is also spread to the women, who, most of them survived the war. And they're the women who got us equal rights, who got us the vote, who, by doing the jobs of the men when they were at war, kept the country going and kept us with food. And I think those women really deserve to be remembered. So I know that next time that I do the 2-minute silence, I'll be thinking about all the research that we've done and the women that we've found out about, and also be thinking about all the men who died in that war 100 years ago, but who are still alive in our memories, whether or not they died in the battle itself.